Hello and welcome to part 4. So, as promised at the end of part 3, there is a rolling chassis. We have wheels on, she drives, she steers. I'm not going to turn her around to prove that she's got wheels on the other side because it's too heavy for that. So this video, there's going to be some run footage at the end. There's also going to be a colour spoiler as well, because I've not told anyone yet, apart from Andrew, what colour it's going to be. I've started priming and the first set of colour will go on various bits shortly, so stay tuned. I'm not going to tell you which bit it is, so that means you can't skip it. A little bit of a trickery there to get you to watch the whole video. So first thing really to talk about, I think, is the play in the A-arms in here. Now, about getting a shim in, or washer, or whatever you want to call it. Now, the bit I'm talking about is, I can move my camera down, sorry about the jerkiness, is in there. Now, the washer is in there now. People are saying that, you know, there's too much play, and they're quite right. So what I was trying to do was trying to get the washer in while I was putting the whole of the A-arms together, and that just didn't work. Everything was falling all over the place, so I waited until it was bolted to the chassis, took the bolt out of the A-arm and then slid the spacer in, washer in, whatever you want to call it, and it went in fine. So there's no play anymore. Well, a tiny bit, but a lot better than it was before, which is fantastic. So it's really quite clever too. These bars here, they go through the front of the A-arms and they get clamped here. There's a longer one and a shorter one. Now I was thinking, how on earth does this work? I had seen it, but I didn't quite understand. So in the kit, there's two bits of plastic, one standard, one soft. Now if you turn the truck over, it hooks into the bottom of the chassis, the kind of bash plate if you like, and you hold up the suspension. So you don't tighten these up fully, you put the plates on, you put some tension in them, you put this in place, clip it in, hold the suspension up to against this plastic template if you like, and then you tighten up those bolts, and it then sets it to either standard or soft. I've chosen to set it to soft. I tend to have all my rigs, you know, suspension quite soft. I quite like that. I think they drive nicer, just personal opinion really. You can obviously set it to whatever you like. I may try standard at some point, see how we get on. So that went on, that was all fine. The keen-eyed of you noticed that the gearbox selector arm, the rod, was in the wrong place. I had this the wrong way around. That's been changed. I found that out because I was trying to put the cab on just to see what it looked like once I had the chassis rolling, and this was too high, it wouldn't go on. So I found that out, but there's been lots of comments, but thank you everyone that's put comments together. That's been really, really useful. I have responded, but you know, it's good to, it shows you watching the videos and actually picking up on stuff. So, you know, please do that. Then I put on the front bumper, which is just, I mean, that's just, it's solid. It's like a battering ram, honestly. I took photographs of it and sent it to Andrew and said, you know, he has this habit, which you don't normally see on our videos. You just, because we edit them out, he has this habit, we're driving along and he'll do what they do in Top Gear. Well, he won't just ram me, but he'll be driving in front of me and he'll just stop dead. So what my MC rams into the back of his MC8 and he thinks that's hilarious. Now I said, you try and do that again, Sunshine, and you're going to regret it. Squish the MC8 in half, no doubt. It sounds a bit violent, doesn't it? Why not? So the rear kind of rocker arm, if you like, the suspension, that's pretty cool. There's like bushes in here. Let me lift the camera up a little bit. My tripod's gone all jerky and stiff. Ooh, I don't know why, it wasn't used to be like that. Anyway, so there's bushes here that connect to each A-arm here, and it's got this rocker system. It's really cool. So what it does mean that if you try and push the truck down, you don't get any suspension. But when it actually drives over things, this actually articulates quite well. I'm really quite impressed. It's very good actually, very, very good. That wasn't very difficult to put together. You have to put a rod in here. I had to, the hole in the chassis wasn't quite big enough. I had to kind of Dremel a little bit of it away, sand it away. Not too much of an issue really. Again, just a little bit of machining, but it went on, no issues. It drives, the rear suspension seems absolutely fine. The A-arm is now on. I couldn't get this on because I was missing 3 of the bolts, or 6 in actual fact. I forget the name of the numbers. Each bag, you've got a bolt in each bolt, sorry, is in a numbered bag to help you, and that's been great. And I got to the end and there weren't any left, so I couldn't fit it. So I spoke to Simon at Greens. Again, I mean, Simon is he's great, and there's no sponsorship, believe me, everything's bought and paid for, but Simon is a really top man, and if he stops doing this at any point, I think he's the only UK supplier, I'm going to be a bit frightened about getting parts because there's no one else I know of. Anyway, digressing. But yes, Simon's the top guy. He sent me some bolts in the post. They arrived as he always does next day. Superb. So then I put this all together. I'm not sure if I'm going to leave this on or not because it keeps, if I've done that up tight enough, if I need to tighten it some more, but it keeps flapping around. I need to look into that because I'm not sure I quite like that idea. It doesn't look very scale with it flapping around. Maybe I haven't done it up tight enough. Anyway, digressing slightly. So yeah, that went on fine. And then the steering servos all set up. The steering mechanism on this, it's very difficult to describe what it's like. Well, I've not known one that's been like this before. There's multiple there's like a bracket that goes across, and you've then it doesn't bolt to the servo arm. So there's like a little shim washer, if you like, and like a little collar that goes up into this special supplied servo arm. So there's a hole in the end of the servo arm and it slots up, and it doesn't screw on, it just slots in place. It's very clever. Probably making me sound like I'm talking gobbledygook, but you know, I'll put a photograph up of what I mean so you can see the layout and how it looks. I guess that's the trouble of me kind of not building it in real time, but if I do that, the videos would just be so long and you'd laugh at all of my mistakes. So that went together well. I don't know why, but I was most nervous about the steering, more nervous than anything else, to be fair. I'm not sure why, but you know, just to get it set up right, having 2 servos working. The electronics are working fine, which I showed you this in the last video. So this runs the 2 servos. What I did do the other day, well yesterday in fact, was put the MC6 on a trailer, the 1/10 trailer I've got, and run it around the garden. I will put some video footage up of that. Just wanted to see really, one, to get a bit of a load on it, get it pulling, to test if anything's going to go wrong. Let me move the camera back. Now I don't need to get access to the rig quite so much. And running it around the garden because I thought if anything's going to go wrong, drop off, break, I wanted to do it. Well, it's just a chassis. And something did go wrong. I was driving down the side of the garden and I lost the front steering. Because they're 2 separate servos. This one was working, that one wasn't. I thought, oh no, I've only run it, you know, not even half an hour at most in the garden. And I've broken it already. But what had actually happened was I'd used the original screw that came with the servos. It was a little tiny screw that bolts the servo horn onto the servo, and it was just that little bit too short. And what had happened, the bolt had come out, disengaged with the thread, and it had fallen down into the chassis. So I put some better bolts in. Don't know what I was thinking of really. Test run it again yesterday evening, working absolutely fine. Absolutely brilliant. A couple of things I want to ask some other people that have got these trucks. One, because this has got CVDs on it and it has not got dog bones, do people run their servos travel length up to 100% travel on both servos? In doing that, have you burnt out a servo, had any issues? I'm running mine at 95%. I always tend to, bit of a safety margin, but it'd be useful to run them at 100. Or is anyone running more than 100 and had an issue? I'm being keen to know if you've had any problems at all. So please do tell me. The other thing I've got a slight issue about is we had this with the MCs, and it's got, Andrews has managed to sort his, and he's running a Sidewinder ESC. Now I'm running a hobby ring XE run in my MC6, and this is a 1080 hobby ring ESC. Now it's probably not going to work because it's probably going to grip the cutting mat, but there's quite a bit of play when you roll the truck forward before it engages. So like this now. So it's a free wheels there and then catches. You see what I mean, going backwards and forwards if I'm a little bit harsher with it. Now, when putting I check the gearbox, it's greased and everything else. All the other little transfer boxes, you know, the axles, all the gears have got the shims on like it says. I've only got to put one shim in each place that it says to. But whether everyone else's is like that, because what happens is I drove it down my daughter's slide, and on a gradual slope, when the truck tips over, it's nice, and the 1080 drag brakes more than enough. It's fine, it creeps nicely, it's lovely. I went down off my garden from the raised grass area to the patio, and just had like a wooden we used to be a wooden shelf, because there's a little step, and as it goes over the step, of course the truck moves that far before it catches, and it kind of lurches and then jolts. Now I've spoken to people on email and Gmail that have got these trucks, and well, one person actually says, yeah, that's just playing the drivetrain, is what it's like. But I don't know whether you can solve that or not. It's not a massive issue. I need to see what it runs like. But it's that kind of scary moment when you go over a big hill and you're just about to go over the drop, and it kind of lurches and then it catches. So you know it's going to be safe, but it's kind of, especially if you've got a rock or it's a bit, you know, one of your axles is up and it's a bit lopsided, it feels like it's going to tip over. That's a bit disconcerting. So again, don't know if you can see that, it's just there. Roll, catch, roll, catch. Now when you got the wheels off, I guess it's probably the fact that these wheels are fairly big. When you put the axles together, there isn't anywhere near this much free play when you're turning the gearbox by hand, or the shaft by hand. So I guess it accentuates it with the wheels being 2.2. But yeah, there's no play, there's no play, you know, all the A-arms have been sorted, there's no play this way, everything's fine, everything's nice and tight, it's just, yeah, it rolls slightly. Now, I don't know if you can solve that. If you can, and you know how, please let me know. Not sure I fancy stripping the whole thing down right now, but maybe when I do a rebuild, you know, like a clean up in future when it's got muddy, something that I might change. But apart from that, gearbox is working fine, she's running real fine. When I had the MC6 on the trailer, it felt like it wasn't there. I thought, oh, it's going to feel a bit sluggish. At all. The other thing I'll say is it makes the MC6 feel like a bit of a toy. It really does. A bit like, difficult to explain, I guess. When we run the MCs, which Andrew and I tend to run the MCs when we go out, when we take the 4x4s as well, we run the MCs first. We then run the 4x4s, and we've always said the 4x4s feel a bit crude in comparison to the MCs. This makes the MC feel like that, in my opinion. Because as well, underneath, the axles aren't exposed. If I can try and lift this up, I'm dropping things, there's just a bash plate all the way along. It tends to just glide over stuff. So I set some logs up in my garden and was messing around driving over them and up the steps, and it just drives over stuff. It's just, whereas the MCs get caught because their gearbox, the MC gearbox, is hanging down through the chassis, and that's probably the MC's weakest point, I'd say, because it's always grounding on the chassis on mine, on the gearbox. Whereas this, it just drives over stuff. It's just incredible. It's just brilliant. It's, obviously, I haven't tested it properly. I don't want to take it out. You know, we shouldn't at the moment anyway, but even, you know, for the excuse of exercise, going for a walk, the places we go to are sandy and dusty, and while everything's exposed and all the electrics are out, I don't want to be getting it that dirty. I want to have it finished first. So it's just being run in the garden only. Right, to stop me rambling on, what colour is it going to be? So I've done some priming, which I'm not going to show you yet because that's going to be in the next video. Beautiful weather, so I managed to get some paint. But the colour is Halfords Enamel Gadget Blue. And I had this idea in mind. It's not going to be military, it's going to be kind of civilian. It's going to be this really striking blue. I really like it, and I think it will pop nicely. I like enamel as well. I did the MC acrylic. When I saw Andrew doing enamel on his models, I like it. Kind of looks a bit more glossy. That's how that's going to be. I haven't sprayed any of the blue yet. I've done some of the primer. You can just see the can in the background, so I've been doing that today. I haven't sprayed the blue on anything. I probably will do that tomorrow and have a look at how it comes out. But I think it will pop lovely, and I think it will look really good. So the whole thing is going to be blue. There's not going to be many other colors, because I've done a bit of research on the MAZ 537, I think it's called, the proper name, and it seems to be, as well as the interior, it's all just been painted one color mostly. There'll be a couple of little subtle bits that I will have different colors, like the seats and the steering wheel and stuff, but that's it. It's going to be blue, and I think it'll look epic. So yeah, hope you all have a great Easter weekend. By the time you see this video, Easter will be forgotten about, I should imagine. But yeah, she is running, she's beautiful, and I am over the moon, and she is a proper monster. I mean, trying to lift her now is quite difficult. And next to the MC, yeah, makes the MC look quite small. I'll put a picture up now, actually, of them side by side. Yeah, it's quite a big difference. Exciting times, things are moving on, folks. So next part will be just some of the painting I've done and showing you how the blue's gone on. Hopefully it'll go on well. I'm doing the prep properly, feel pretty confident, so fingers crossed. Thank you for watching as always. Please like and subscribe. Catch up soon. Bye for now.